All right, welcome in everybody to the Important Nonsense Podcast. Steve Bonham, Neil Smith, Mike Manning. 32 teams in 32 days. Today, the Las Vegas Raiders. Neil, are you ready to talk about the Raiders?
I'm so sad I don't get to make my black hole of useful fantasy players joke from years gone by. I love that joke, and I've had to retire it because of the offseason moves that they made. I'm very sad. It's a sad day over here. I have to come up with new material.
Yeah, always sad when you have to come up with new material. Mike, ready to get into this today?
Yeah, I mean, the team eventually had to have some actual positive moves, right?
The Jets exist. I refute the entire.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I refute your entire argument. Just
there's
based
no
on
precedent for
the
that.
Jets existing.
I mean, there's at least a couple guys I can name on the Jets that I think are nice, but
okay,
we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah.
Derail the show for starting.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, again, patreon.com/important nonsense. Sign up, get in the Discord, get these a couple days early. If you're liking the videos, like and subscribe. We appreciate it. We are recording this on August 3rd. So if any of this information seems out of date, it's because it is. We'll be doing a wrap-up show on August 26th live. So you can come, hop in the comments section, ask us any questions you want, and we will catch up on anything that may have happened with any of these teams since we talked about them. And then 12-team PPR for all of our rankings, projections, all of that stuff. So again, maybe have to adjust based on your general league settings. So we start at the top, and of course it is Derek Carr. Kirk Cousins. No, it is Derek Carr. Sorry. They are not the same person. I'm almost positive I've seen them in the same room at the same time. ADP would say otherwise, but they're different people, I guess. So, he had an okay season, right? He had chunks of usefulness last year, and now he has a real wide receiver for like the first time ever. So, Derek Carr hype?
No,
never. Okay.
No. Derek Carr fits neatly in my khaki pants tier of quarterbacks. It's not sexy, and nobody's going to say, ooh, when you do it. But you mentioned it. Mm-hmm. He has moments of usability, let's call it. And he does professional NFL quarterback things. The problem is that there's good Derek Carr, and that's kind of in quotes, but there's serviceable Derek Carr, and then there's bad Derek Carr, who will show up periodically, and you don't really know when it's going to happen. But there are these moments where you're just watching, and it's like, what were you thinking? What are you doing? Yeah. But I agree.
I know exactly one of those because I remember specifically using him as a fill-in quarterback last year in the middle of the season against the Atlanta Falcons, thinking he was just coming off like a 25, 26-point game. He's going against the Falcons. And I think he got negative points.
He did.
Yeah.
So I was very aware of the up and down of Derek Carr last year.
Yes. And again, as we've talked about, we batch record these all at once. So it's going to work out for me that today we get to talk about basically my entire Dockers tier in the quarterbacks. Because tier 4 is Matt Stafford, Kirk Cousins, and Derek Carr. That's just throw on your Dockers and get comfy. That's all that is.
You put on
There's nothing fancy
pants.
about it. Right. Nothing exciting is going to happen when you're wearing your Dockers.
You call Jake from State Farm. It's
a nice little Sunday. Maybe go to the Home Depot. I don't know. Bed Bath & Beyond. I don't know if we'll have time. But that's basically that tier of quarterback right there. And I'm all right with that. Again, if you punt QB and you're willing to stock up on everything else, I've literally got it ranked where there's 12 right now, 11 and a half that we'll talk about later, but quarterbacks ahead of these guys. So really, if you want to just say 11 solid QBs, and then you've got 3 guys where if I have Stafford, Cousins, or Carr as my weekly starter, I'm fine with it. As long as I've got a great supporting cast around them, doesn't matter. I'm good with it.
It's funny because my khaki pants, my Dockers tier It's actually 2 guys. It's my tier 4.
Not a sponsor, by the way, but if we
No,
can
not
get
a
that
sponsor.
going,
Although I will wear
official
your pants.
Dockers tier.
I will absolutely wear khaki pants.
Yes.
It'll be difficult to show off on a stream, but
No. We'll get the stand-up desk and we'll just get the camera.
I'll adjust the camera. And
I'll work that
down.
out. Don't you worry, Mike. I'll work that out. I got some flexibility on here. I can redo this. But for me, it's tier 4. It's literally it's a tier of 2, which is so rare. But it's Kirk Cousins and it's Derek Carr. Because I think about it one of 2 ways. It's either I got one of my I just have Stafford one spot up. He's the last pony in the stable on that last tier. Because there is some upside with Stafford, which I just don't think you get with Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr. But you do get a nice floor. At the end of the year, points per game is not going to be either of their strong suit. But at the end of the year, it's all going to total up, and they're going to finish right in that neighborhood. Mike, you were on the show with Jack where I was talking about Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr as the Spider-Man meme.
Yeah.
And we had some of our fans clapping back at me saying, "Oh my God, no." And I'm like, yes. Go through the numbers. It's basically the same guy. If you took the names off the jerseys and just lined it up, they're almost functionally identical, and you get the same thing, which is nice, decent floor. They'll have some nice weeks for you, and you can do this one of 2 ways. It's either I got one of the guys that I really wanted in one of the 11 or 12 guys that are better, and then that's my backup, and I've got some real strength in the QB room. Or I got Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr because I punted on quarterback, and then I get to pick one of my lovely upside guys from tier 5, and I roll it forward that way. I have something that I can use until whatever happens with whoever I got out of my upside tier sorts itself out. It's not going to be a happy long-term solution either way, but you can't really crash the car too hard. Nobody's overdrafting either Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr. And I hate to just keep lumping them in together, but I cannot stress enough how similar they are in terms of what you can expect and what you will probably live with on a week in, week out basis.
Yeah, Carr's last season was his career high in passing yards, and it was still only around 4,800, but it was 700 more than his previous career high. Right. So you can basically pencil him before last season. You could basically pencil him in for just over 4,000 yards, just like Kirk, and around 30, give or take, like 2 or 3 up or 2 or 3 down passing touchdowns. That's about what you could do for literally both players as a career average.
Yeah, about accurate. I mean, I feel like Derek. Yeah. No, I got nothing for that. That's spot on. 100%.
To use his quote, Mike, identical. It's the Spider-Man meme. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's for the 3 years before that. Derek Carr, 40-49, 40-54, 41-03. Almost exactly the same. And then last year, 48-04. And again, that was with 1 extra game.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, like on a per game basis, it's still roughly basically the same. So, yes, the big thing is adding another weapon in the passing game. Does that make a massive difference? Even if it did, does it matter for him? Probably. Running back. Josh Jacobs returns as RB1 in the backfield. But will this backfield become a committee with Josh McDaniels coming over as the new head coach? And this is the big thing too. So Josh Jacobs going into the final year of his contract, they have basically come out and said, you got to prove it. We want to see what you can do for us this season, because they did not pick up that 5th-year option. So they're not going to keep him around beyond this, at least, at the high end price it would be to keep him on the 5th-year option. So it's a make or break year for Jacobs. They also still have Kenyan Drake lurking around there. And America's darling, Zamir White, was drafted this season. So it's effectively a 3-headed monster, or is it still Jacobs' job? Or what are we thinking here, Neil? How do you feel about Josh Jacobs?
I think Jacobs is less the conversation as much as it would relate to the other individuals in the backfield. Jacobs, I feel like we more or less know what we're getting. We all even have him rated broadly the same. He's like a low end RB2. And in order for him to get more than that, he would need to catch more passes. This is historically the issue with Josh Jacobs at PPR. He just does not catch well. They've tried. He's not great at it. It's not his skill set. Now, I will say his skill set really is running between the tackles, and he's darn good at that. And he's good in the red zone. He's also, as we know, he's like a warrior. His rookie year, he played half that season with a separated shoulder. I pulled my back standing up from my chair the other day. Like that guy is nuts. He's unfortunately toughness doesn't translate to the fantasy points that we are looking for here. So for me, I'm not overly worried about Josh Jacobs. I think you kind of know what you're getting. You're going to get a lot of volume, and you're going to get some good red zone production. So we've all got him in the same kind of like 20s area. Steve 21, myself 20, Mike, you got him at 24, ECR's got him at 22. So I'm not overly worried about what you're going to get out of Josh Jacobs. Mike, what do you think about Josh Jacobs? I think we can, for me, to sum up, it's expect what you've already seen in previous years is kind of the takeaway.
Yeah, and I agree that. I mean, what we've seen, he's been the past 3 years, he was sitting there at PPR RB 12 in 2021, PPR in full points.
Yeah.
Total points, 21.
Well, and points per game last year.
Oh, okay. So 12. The year before that, he was 8th. And the year before that, he was 21. Like, you're just not – I don't think you can expect anything better than that 8th for sure. Yeah. Especially now that we're getting a Josh McDaniels to come over and he being a notorious committee type guy. And so they brought in multiple running backs this offseason. They brought in Zamir White, who is known as a bruiser that's going to just hit his head between the tackles and just get hard yardage. And then you got Brandon Bolden, who came over from New England with Josh McDaniels. And you got Amir Abdullah that came over as well. So this is going to likely be a headache. And even Jacobs in his career has been a guy that really has those big booms of type games with like 2 or 3 touchdowns. And then he has the just duds of 12 rushes or something for 48 yards and 0 touchdowns. And you're just like, ugh. So I'm a little bit lower because I just don't want to deal with the headache. I'd rather take a guy that has a upside or something along those lines,
right,
than expect Jacobs to do something we haven't seen already.
Yeah, to your point, Kenyan Drake got hurt last year. It was basically just Jacobs on his own. Last season, he had 64 targets. He had 54 receptions. Those 54 receptions were more than his first 2 seasons in the league combined. And he still topped out at RB12. So you're literally talking about him being the only guy left in that backfield, having literally the entire running back job and being RB12. So I'm comfortable with him as a back-end RB2, but nothing higher than that. But even then, right now, ECR's got him at 22. He's going at 20. You're not going to have to overpay for Josh Jacobs. He's really in that tier and that point where it's like, oh, I hate drafting running back right now. I really want one of these wide receivers instead. That's basically what every draft is when you see Josh Jacobs on the board. So I think the bigger discussion is behind him. We talked about Zamir White. We talked about Kenyan Drake. I don't know if you guys knew this, but Kenyan Drake's dead. Apparently,
I did know that from pulling together all the
ADP. Then yeah,
pulled all this together.
He is dead.
I didn't know that.
RIP. He will be missed. This is surprising to me. So he is coming off of an injury, but again, you've mentioned several times now, Mike, the committee aspect of this Josh McDaniels offense. They have also said on several occasions, the beat reporters, just from what they've observed in camp, that they're working Kenyan Drake in more, that he is getting almost 50-50 splits with Josh Jacobs on the first team, and he's getting a lot of the third down back work, which we knew he would last season before he took the injury. If something were to happen to Jacobs, Kenyan Drake has the upside to get even more of that workload, but even without an injury, I think he carves himself out a big enough role to at least be in back-end deep flex consideration. And we all have him rated right around there, basically back-end 40s. The ECR, however, has him at RB 60 for some reason, and he's RB 57 in ADP, going virtually undrafted. Amazing.
I mean, that is
blew me
kind of
away.
crazy. Yeah.
It blew me away when I pulled that. I didn't realize that he had retired.
Right.
And they've got him down in like handcuff territory. And just like we talked about yesterday, the idea, is Darrell Henderson a handcuff, or does he have a job on his own? And we said, he's probably the handcuff. This is not that. This is the opposite of that. Kenyan Drake has his own job.
Yeah.
He's going to be out there doing a job for them in a McDaniels offense that, I mean, they're going to get him involved. They're having him around for a reason. My main concern about Kenyan Drake was, would he be able to actually get back in time for camp? Well, he did that. He's out there right now. So at this point, the injury concerns, I think, are overblown. And I'm wondering if this might be, and you guys feel free to chime in on if I'm insane. Again, we kind of know the answer to that already. But is this their overreaction to last year where people got torched?
The overcorrection.
The overcorrection. Is that what this is? Because I think that might be what this is.
I don't even think it's that, because remember, we were having the discussion last year. Why do you hate Kenyan Drake so much? Like, we had this exact same conversation about people completely fading Kenyan Drake to oblivion, and then he was decent and usable, and then got hurt and missed the rest of the season.
Yeah, you could count on Kenyan Drake last year to have a handful plus touches every single game. Was used in the receiving game and was used often in the red zone as well. Not often when he was running the ball in the red zone, but he was in there in the 20 to 10 range, or 20 to 5, and was used for targets in passing downs in the red zone. So he was getting the right touches, at least, which is what you're looking for whenever you're going for a RB2, like the second RB on a team.
So the question is, Zamir White, is he, like, right now in ECR, he's RB 66, so just barely behind Kenyan Drake. He's also going at RB 70 in the ADP. So ADP a little bit higher than the ECR on Drake and significantly lower on Zamir White. But we all have him ranked as basically useless. It's really just a name to know, right? Just another name in the committee. Because to me, I didn't think he graded out that well. I wasn't that impressed with him. And then he falls into a situation where it's going to be really tough for him to get meaningful work.
Yeah, if you look at him as a player coming out of college, he's a good player. He was just a highly touted recruit. He tore both his ACLs throughout by leaving college, by the time he left college. But he has no receiving ability. So he has no chance, no matter what injuries happen, of being the full-time back. I think that this is more of a, let's see what we have with him by the time 2023 comes around, when Jacobs is not have a contract anymore. Maybe they'll just have Zamir White and, say, Brandon Bolden as their two-headed back system. I could easily see that happening, because I think White is just there as a placeholder, essentially.
Yeah.
I think White is only interesting in the sense that if something, to your point about name to know, if something was to happen to Jacobs, sure. Be a great waiver pickup, because somebody's going to have to be the bruiser down on the goal line for them, and that screams Zamir White. But similar to you, he didn't grade out that high for me coming into. He's not the prototypical running back that I'm looking for in PPR. I'm not looking for these guys who can't catch. And he doesn't. I can't figure out the fascination that exists around him in the expert community. That's my main struggle here. I think this is the rare situation where the public really has this much more correct. They're evaluating it a little more in a real way. And also, this is a little narrative-y, but just go with me here. This is, on paper, supposed to be a team that is trying to go to the playoffs. I really find it hard to believe that they're going to just suddenly throw the veterans in the back and say, okay, Zamir, go get it. Like, go run. This is not the Lions. This is a team that, it's granted, it's not the most certain thing, but they're trying to go back to the playoffs. They're not going to turn the car over to a rookie and say, go get it, kid. I'm not buying the hype here. I'm not understanding where the love is coming from.
right, wide receiver. This is the big talking point. Davante Adams reunites with his college QB. Obviously, downgrade for him, though, coming from Aaron Rodgers to Derek Carr, as we talked about ad nauseum at the start of this. So he'll have stiffer competition for targets, obviously, than what he was used to in Green Bay, where there was virtually nothing. I'm sorry to laugh. Target share among wide receivers, top 6 in 3 of the past 4 seasons for Adams. Number 1 in 2020, number 2 in 2021. Top 2 wide receiver in PPR fantasy points 3 of the last 4 years. But you mentioned more competition. He comes in where Hunter Renfrow was a target monster. Also, Darren Waller is theoretically back and ready to go. And they signed, they signed Keelan Cole. They signed Demarcus Robinson from Kansas City. They're just names. They're just depth NFL guys. They're not really fantasy relevant, but they're still guys on the team. The main thing, though, is Davante Adams. Is he still going to be a top 5 wide receiver coming over into a new situation?
To make it bite-sized, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, let's move on then.
Okay, that's all it needs, man.
I mean, I do agree. You're going to give up what you gave up and give this guy the biggest contract for a wide receiver in NFL history. Probably going to throw him the ball.
All right.
I don't think the connection exactly is there, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, we won't spend a ton of time on it. I have Davante Adams in my tier 2. I already mentioned in the last episode, I've got Kupp and Jefferson in my tier 1. I've got 4 guys in my tier 2, and Davante Adams is part of that. General roster construction, we are talking about PPR. Are you okay taking Davante Adams in the first round, or would you prefer to get him high-end second? Because that's really what we're talking about. Because his ADP right now is 11 overall.
I prefer to get him in high-end second, but it depends on what the 10 picks in front of you are. Yeah. If all the running backs are gone, then you probably could find your way into a Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson, or Cooper Kupp. But those are the only 3 receivers I have ahead of him, and I don't advocate for taking a tight end in the first round.
Yeah.
So realistically, it's like, what are you talking about that is still there? So I'd be fine with him at 11, depending on what went immediately in front. But in reality, I'd prefer top of the second.
Yeah, I agree. 202 is just feels a lot better because you should be able to have a running back that is
glad you said that, because I've got him ranked at 14 overall. So that's that is spot on right there. So again, it's close to where his ADP is. We would just like to we always want to get a value. You never want to overpay for something, but that's right in line. If that's your cup of tea, go for it. The big question mark is Hunter Renfrow. So he signed an extension this offseason, and he is going to work the slot again. But Renfrow's late season surge may have been because he was just the last man standing, right? The Raiders dealt with a lot of injuries last year. The notable ones were losing Kenyan Drake, and it was just the Josh Jacobs show in the backfield, and then losing Darren Waller, and Waller not effectively playing the last half of the season. So Hunter Renfrow, without anyone other than Zay Jones, was basically the wide receiver and target on this team, and was a massive target monster. Weeks 1 through 11, Waller had 82 targets to Renfrow's 78, Bryan Edwards with just 37. And then weeks 12 through 18, Renfrow had 55 targets to Zay Jones 53 and Josh Jacobs 32. 12 through 14, 41 receptions for 442 and 4 touchdowns. And weeks 1 through 11 and 15 through 18, are those the weeks that Waller played?
So it was basically, I was showing that a lot of Renfrow's production came in a 3-week span.
3 weeks?
Yeah. And yeah, so Waller missed.
So in those 3 weeks, 41 receptions for 442 and 4 touchdowns. And in every other week combined, 62 receptions for 596 and 5 touchdowns. So basically, he put up his entire season's numbers in 3 weeks.
3 games.
Yeah. That was the scary part to me. Waller left week 12 against Dallas and then came back in week 18.
Yeah.
So basically was that time frame, but it was more of the fact that how do you trust something that is so much production in just a 3-game span?
Yeah.
Because as you saw with the receptions, this was a two-headed monster on offense. No matter who the players were, Carr found 2 guys, basically targeted them. That was it.
Yes. I've also made that argument that that's essentially been his entire career. If you go back, not even last season, you go 2 years ago, Darren Waller, monster season, was tight end 2, right? Put up the huge numbers. And Nelson Aguilar, also fantasy zombie, had like a top 24 PPR season. The year before that, it was Darren Waller. And was that the Jordy Nelson season when he was still lurking around? It was somebody. It was some wide receiver who had a top 36, but it was 2 guys, and then everyone else was effectively useless. And essentially that's what I'm trying to break it down as, is when you're looking at this offense, based on his career, Derek Carr picks 2 favorites and ignores everyone else. And I think you have to have Davante Adams as one of those 2 guys. And just based on their chemistry and connection over multiple years, not just 1 year, I think Darren Waller is that other guy. So then where does that leave Hunter Renfrow? And for me, that leaves Hunter Renfrow with sub 100 targets, with 62 receptions. And because he's the slot guy, you're talking about a lot of underneath, not a ton of yardage unless it's run after the catch. So I have him projected out around wide receiver 50, which is why I have him ranked about there. But that is somehow significantly lower than where the general public wants to take him. And like you're saying, Mike, that's basically put around 3 games.
Yeah, and I'm going to, even looking at my ranking now, after I'd done more research and found that 3 stretch game and everything else, I was like, I should probably move him down a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got to tell you, you can move him wherever you'd like. It's not going to make much of a difference because I've got him at 49. Neil, you've got him 44. The ECR has him at 36. And in PPR scoring, Hunter Renfrow is currently wide receiver 30 in ADP. He is going in the 7th round, ahead of Allen Robinson, ahead of the Gabe Davis hype train, ahead of Elijah Moore, Juju, Rashad Bateman. I mean, what is happening?
I don't understand.
Remember when we were the show talking about Hunter Renfrow, that wide receiver you've never heard of? And
I
now
do.
All of a sudden, 3 games, and this man is the next fantasy Jesus. This is amazing.
That's why I made sure I put the ECR thing on here when I was pulling the numbers together in the background, because the hype train has gone off the rails, down the cliff, and into the gorge, and is currently on fire. He's a back-end flex, folks. Steve, I'm not going to repeat what you just said because you summed it up perfectly. This team historically can support 2 pass catchers. That leaves Hunter Renfrow 3rd, definitively, for me on this. And there's no chance that he can, as Mike did a great job of listing it off. I'm not comfortable banking on he's going to be able to return what he was doing on that 3-game clip. It just, none of this makes any sense. And I think this is one of those situations where they like people see the name, they like to say Renfrow. There's something like that going on. There's some weird.
If you want to go anything narrative based, it's it's Josh McDaniels, white guy in the slot. That's Julian.
Oh, there you
Edelman.
go. I didn't even think about that. That's a good one. That's a really good narrative.
The new Julian Edelman. That's.
We'll take a turn down narrative street and we'll book that one for later. That's a perfect one.
Yes.
Yeah, the white guy in the slot in a New England style offense.
Yep. New England white guy in the slot. That's it. That's really it. There's no shot. Like at wide receiver 30, there is never a league where I'm going to even come close to sniffing Hunter Renfrow. I'm literally talking about considering him 20 spots down the board. So it's just never going to happen.
It's where he should be. He's barely a flex.
Yeah, suddenly this has become the new Tyler Boyd for me. I don't know how, because I love Hunter Renfrow, but I'm 20 spots lower than where he's currently going. So it is what it is. As I said before, though, the rest of that wide receiver room, it's all just NFL based, nothing fantasy. Tight end, Darren Waller, mentioned a couple of times. He's coming off his third straight season with 100+ targets, but spent a lot of 2021 battling injuries. He's not going to be the alpha in this offense anymore because, again, Davante Adams. But target share among tight ends, number 2 in 2019, number 1 in 2020. Top 3 tight end in PPR fantasy points 2 of the last 3 seasons. I've got him 3. Everybody else, including the ECR, has him 5. So, again, I can't really make an argument against that in any way, shape, or form. This is another tier situation where I have Kelsey and Andrews at the top in tier 2 all by their lonesome. And then my tier 2 is Waller, Pitts, and Kittle. And I feel like all 3 of those guys, if you want to take any of them, you go right ahead. Pitts is the one that people are going to be willing to pay up for. And I get it. But outside of that, once you get out of those 2 tiers, the rest of it might as well be a dumpster because it's just pretty much useless. So whatever you want to do, abolish the tight end. Shop.importantnonsense.com.
Yeah, I just
anybody
feel
have
that
anything on Darren Waller at all? That's
it's just the comparison when you're sitting there is so he obviously thrived whenever he was the monster target share, and so did Davante Adams. You can't have 2 players have top 2 target share percentage of a team,
right,
at 2 different positions. Like that's just not going to happen. So he's going to see a downtick in his targets. He'll see less coverage because, I mean, obviously you're going to pay more attention to Davante Adams than you are anybody else. But like last season, he had that 19 target game in week 1. And then I think he saw like one other double-digit target game. Just the injuries really hurt him last year. I think he's going to be solid and he's going to be good, but I wouldn't go near the 3 for you.
You know me, I tend to punt the high price tight end thing anyway. Yeah, it's just not how I do team construction. So I'm sure he'll have a very nice season for everyone who wants to be involved. He will be the number 2 in targets and receptions and touchdowns and all the other stuff, fun stuff on this team. Renfrow is the one who gets cratered. Yeah. Sorry, America. I don't know why this is confusing, but it clearly needs to be stated. Renfrow is the one that is the poison pill. Waller is fine. I don't know that I'm going to be willing to go that high, but to be honest with you, I can't really get. I'm not going to argue with you about it, Steve. I think you nailed it. It's just ordering the tier however you want it, whatever you feel confident.
So the defense, you don't want it. I don't know if you guys knew this, but the AFC West, it is good this year.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So 6 times you're not going to be able to start the Raiders defense, and because it's the Raiders defense, it's going to be a lot more than 6. They are not going to be able to start them. My father-in-law is a diehard Raiders fan, and I have equated it to get ready to watch a lot of 49-47 games. Just hope that you're the 49 a lot. That's basically what you're going for. Outside of that, Daniel Carlson, he was the number 1 kicker last year. He's a top-tier kicker for me this year. So, again, if he falls to you, great, but if you're in a general home league, someone's going to take Daniel Carlson like the 11th round, and you'll never have a chance at him, and just laugh and laugh and laugh, and then take your 5th wide receiver and be good. Any closing thoughts on Vegas?
Why?
No, I think we covered it all the way around.
Yeah, why with Renfrow? That's it. That's the only thing
we've
gotten at this point. We went through 30-something minutes at this point, and all we got out of it was the biggest takeaway. What is the love for Renfrow?
I mean, okay, we'll bookend it. Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins is the Spider-Man meme.
Right.
Hunter Renfrow and Julian Edelman is not the Spider-Man.
There you go.
That's how you encapsulate it.
There it is. You are welcome, America. So that's it for today. We will be back tomorrow with Miami. And until then, keep up the nonsense.
I'm Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, and you can find all the guys at ImportantNonsense.com. Kaboom!